Hey folks, we'll be starting the Formitize training in 2 minutes. So for those of you on the webinar, we'll be starting at 9 AM sharp. Okay, if you are on site, please feel free to log into the terminals with your user ID and password, or alternatively the demo information up on the whiteboard. Okay, we'll be starting in 2 minutes.
Just the management portal on there, and then I'll be demoing the app. So you can download the app on your tablet or your phone if you want to as well. Yeah. The management portal's on the desktop.
So for those of you on site, it's up on the whiteboard now, service.formitize.com.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, folks, if you can all take your seats, please. Welcome to the Genes Group Formitize training. My name's Barry. Thank you all for participating today. For those of you on webinar, I'm the good-looking one. I just want to go through the rules of engagement this morning, just quickly. We will be having a simultaneous webinar and a simultaneous recording. So those of you on webinar, you should now be logged in, and hopefully with our screen sharing, you should be looking at the PowerPoint slide rules of engagement. We will be starting on time every time during the 4 sessions today. So we'll be having a session before morning tea, after morning tea and before lunch, after lunch and before afternoon tea, and then after afternoon tea. So I'll be requesting everyone to come back on time and logging back in on time, please. There are a few protocols here today, specifically because we are recording. We'll be having separate questions on notice, so it won't be a free-for-all. We've received a number of questions on notice in advance. So after each one of the presentations made by Matt, I'll be then opening the floor to questions on notice. As I've said, we've received a number of questions on notice. I will be allowing Matt to answer those, and we'll put those up on the screen. But we'll also be taking questions from the floor on the site, and also if you're on webinar, you have the opportunity to raise your hand in the webinar and write your questions as well. So please, as we're going through each of the sessions, write down your questions on your notepads, and then during the questions on notice session, we'll be giving you time to ask those questions. If you're in the webinar, on the control panel, at the bottom of the left-hand column, you have a raise your hand icon. You can raise your hand and we'll be able to see that at the front here of the little button. We'll be monitoring it. So please raise your hand, type a question, and we'll get to those in the question or notice session. There is a bit of a time lag today between swapping screens and via the webinar, so I do ask for your patience in advance. So firstly, let me do some introductions. We have Matt Burge with us, the CEO of Formitize.
Hi everybody. Hello.
We have Phil Burge, who's the head of client activations at Formitize. Phil is here to support us on site. We have Mark and Joel also from Jim's group. So thank you to those guys for joining us today. The agenda, I'll just go through the agenda quickly. So the first session that we'll have before morning tea is setup and settings, and we'll do questions on notice immediately after that session. We'll then have client data import and clients, and then a questions on notice session for that section as well. After morning tea, we'll be talking about leads and leads management, and then we'll have questions on notice. And before lunch, we'll do quotation management and its questions on notice session. After lunch, we'll be doing the scheduler and the jobs and questions on notice. Then we'll be doing invoicing and questions on notice session as well. After afternoon tea, we'll be having a discussion on the accounting packages. And then after that questions on notice, we'll be talking about what's coming, new releases and opportunities for improvement, as well as the support structure from both Formitize and Jim's Group National. We'll be closing sharp at 5 o'clock. Okay? So now I'm going to hand over to Matt. He's going to take us through the first session of setting up and settings. So over to Matt. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. All right, so we'll jump across onto management portal first of all. All right, first of all, I just wanted to thank you guys for having us. We're delighted to be working with Jim's, of course. I won't shy away from the fact to say that it's been a challenge. If you can imagine, as a software company, we're invited in to work with 3,000 odd businesses across 45 different divisions, all with previous experience of using 3 or 4 different software solutions, and some of them known very well. Other new starters coming on board, wanting to start from scratch, and the divisions themselves being very different in how they use software and the systems. For example, the mowing guys tend to use the jobs very heavily, with very little reliance on the flexible forms. Other divisions like pest control, the jobs isn't so important, but the flexibility of the forms and the reports that come out of it are very detailed and have to be very precise. So over the last few months, we've been working with the individual divisions tweaking Formitize, hopefully to suit those different divisions, and that process is nowhere near over. In fact, it's very much in full swing to continue working with the different divisions in the way that each division is using Formitize to make it as perfect as possible for everybody. The company is Australian owned and operated. We have our base in Sydney. We do have international sales and marketing offices, but all of the core development, all the core technology is all developed here in Australia. For those of you that aren't super familiar with Formitize, there's basically two ways to access it. We have what we call the management portal, and that is just it's a secure website. That's all it is. The benefit of that is that you can access it obviously anywhere in the world, wherever you are at any time, on almost any device, you can access the management portal. And it really is the sort of central hub of the solution, I guess, in terms of that's where all of the features and all of the capability and all the storage is. For most GIMS users, it's the app that is the most important because a lot of you are sole traders, single operators, out in the field all day, every day, and it's your phone or tablet that you're going to be relying on. So one of the changes that we are making is bringing more and more of the functionality that's in the management portal into the app, so you can pretty much do everything from the app. And as you'll see over the coming months, more and more of that is moving into the app, so that at some point you probably won't need the management portal at all. But that's where we're up to. Okay. So it is important at the start to get the settings as close to what you need as possible. In most cases, we have worked with the division to start with to try and make it as ideal for your division as possible. So there's a number of different settings that can be customized for each division, things like line items, things like in invoices, things like the services that you do, the overall structure, any forms or reports that are pertinent to your division. We've tried to make sure that that type of setup is done and in place. But I'm going to go through the settings with you now, just so that you, if you need to start from scratch or you want to go in and tweak things, then you can do that. Now, here we are on the home page of the portal. Obviously, this has got some data in there. If you're new to Formitize, this page will be fairly blank. And what we're going to go is to settings in the top menu, and then CRM settings. Okay. Now, Formitize has a number of different components, but the CRM really is where all of your customer management, all of your invoicing and quoting, all of that sort of information is being stored. And so this is where you want to go to set up these different elements. And when you go into the settings page, you'll see that it defaults to the invoices tab on the top left-hand corner, the yellow tab. And then as you move across those tabs, that will help you set up everything that you need to do. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about each specific tab, but I'll just go through the invoicing one in a little bit more detail than the others, just so that everybody's clear. Okay, the first one is accounting software. Now, Formitize has a very close relationship with an accounting software program called Xero. And so to launch with this product with you guys, it has the full Xero capability. And you'll see lots of ways that Formitize interacts backwards and forwards with Xero. When you create an invoice with Formitize, it'll update in Xero. If you add a contact in Xero, it'll update in Formitize, and vice versa. So they're constantly feeding each other with updated information. And the result is a very comprehensive CRM in terms of it correlating with your accounting software all the way through. As you'll see, we are in full development now with QuickBooks, which is coming soon, QuickBooks Online, and with MYOB Essentials, which is the MYOB online version. So both of those are now in full development. We do have limited integration with both of those. You can push invoices into both MYOB and QuickBooks, but it doesn't work with the full two-way integration that we have, as we have with Xero, particularly across the CRM. So they will be released, and we'll go through the release schedule towards the end of the presentation. Okay, the other invoice settings are fairly standard. Hope that's seeing now. The light is connected now. Good. Invoice setting. So there's a couple of options here. Hopefully they're explained well enough that you'll understand them. There's one little tweaky one that relies on the actual conversion of a draft invoice to a full invoice. So I'll just explain that quickly so it makes sense to you when you see it. Formitize has the ability for recurring jobs. Okay, so anyone that's doing maintenance type work, monthly lawn mows, quarterly inspections, whatever they might be, when you set that job up using our job type templates, and I'll come back to what that is, it can automatically create the invoice for you at the same time. Okay, so if you're setting up a recurring job, it's going to happen every month for the next 12 months, it will automatically create the invoice for you attached to that job. Now, what you don't necessarily want to happen is for that invoice to be triggering off to the client at the same time for all 12 of those jobs, nor do you want your accounting software to be receiving all 12 of those invoices today. You want them to be created and dispatched as the jobs are being done. So that first setting, invoice status, is determining when the invoices are going to actually be generated. I hope that makes sense. We use the draft format in the meantime. So it's a draft invoice until the job is done, and then it automatically converts the draft to a full tax invoice. You don't have to do anything. That'll happen automatically in the background with these settings. And then you can also decide when you want to make it even more complicated. Some people want their draft invoices to go into zero. So we have the setting to enable that as well. Okay, that's the next one underneath. The remittance payment details. Traditionally, people would send invoices out by post, and across the bottom of the invoice would be a remittance payment advice. And traditionally, they would cut it off or tear it off and fill in the payment details and the check number and send that back with the check. Now, we have included that, but there is a default here to turn that off. Obviously, we're a paperless solution. We want people to be paperless. The idea is that you email the invoice, but of course, there are scenarios where that's still required. So it's up to you there whether you turn it on or off. The invoice prefix and automated sequential numbering. This determines the number that will appear on the invoice. And if you've been using an older system or paper systems before, you can start the numbering of the invoices with us to commence when your previous one finishes. So it just enables you to set the start date, start number for the invoices that you've got. And of course, then you've got the default invoice payment terms. How long after the invoice is raised do you want to be paid? This is the default. You can override it on a job by job or a client by client basis, but there is a default setting here. And then underneath that is the invoice email, the wording of the email that is to go out with the invoice. And again, you can adapt that. We have a preset in there for you, but you can override that and put your own wording in there. If you hit Control Space, it will enable what we call placeholders. And placeholders pull information in from the CRM, like the orange tabs you can see there, and enables you to create templates for that wording, so it'll automatically pull in the right keywords. Underneath that is the invoice payment terms and conditions. So here is where you'll put things like your bank account details, any payment terms or specific conditions. That box can be as long or as short as you want it to be. We have clients with 2 pages worth of information there, and that'll just attach to the invoice. In the next release, as you'll see in the notes later on, we're also adding the ability to automatically add attachments to invoices. Okay, so you'll be able to upload and automatically send a brochure or a document or a more detailed set of terms and conditions automatically to both your quotes and your invoices. And then finally underneath, we have the reminder system. So essentially, Formitize can chase your outstanding invoices for you. And I won't go into the full detail of this, but this is where you set up these reminders. You can have as many reminders as you want to, and they can be triggered based on the status of the invoice, how old it is. And they can be sent by email, SMS, letter, or can create an internal task. So an example of that might be when the invoice gets to 45 days overdue, an internal task created to remind, or a few days before, or whatever it might be. Okay, and again, in exactly the same way, you use the control space to pull in placeholders to help word those template emails. To add multiple, you just hit the green button. So you can see at the moment there's 3 different emails have been set, but you can just hit the green button and that'll create additional emails, additional tasks, whatever you might want to do. Okay, so that's the invoice settings, and there is quite a lot there. We appreciate that. Hopefully the defaults will help you as much as possible along the text. It does take a little bit of time to set up, but once it's done, you've got a whole lot of automation will start kicking in for you. If you are using Xero and you select Xero in the Xero settings, it will automatically go into Xero. You'll log in, and then it will automatically pull in all of your contacts, all of your historic invoices, all of your line items, all of your current invoices and balances. And so it takes about 10 minutes. It does 4 sweeps of Xero in order to pull that information in, but you'll just see the CRM will just load up with all of your contacts, invoice details, history, and so on. So a really, really nice integration. All right, if we move quickly across these tabs now, we've got quotes, very similar to invoices in terms of the settings that are required. You can see the prefixes, the quote titles, terms and conditions, the quote summary, the quote email, that's the email that attaches the quote, how long the quote is valid for, and therefore the expiry date. And in the same way as invoices, you can actually set up quote reminders as well. So once you've sent a quote to a customer, the system can automatically follow those quotes up for you every 2 days or 7 days or 14 days or whatever it might be until you've got a successful result or not. But it's a really nice automation. Again, you do the quote once, and then the system follows those quotes up for you at the prescribed times. Okay, that's quotes. Purchases, almost exactly the same, but obviously it's purchases for the business. We are doing more work on that for gyms, so that it's much easier for you to assign a purchase to a job, which gives you much more detail around job profitability, which we're getting good feedback on. Okay, account. Now, we are not an accounting system, okay? Just to be clear on that, we encourage you to work with an accounting system and Formitize. However, it does have the ability to build a chart of accounts, which is all of your income and expenditure accounts, your balance sheet accounts, they're all available. It shows you how to do that, encourages you to put them in the right format. And in the same way, you can set up your tax codes as well. Now, depending on the country that you're in, Formitize should automatically set up the correct tax counts for you. So if you're in Australia, it'll have all of the right GST codes ready to go. And then items is effectively your line items of your invoice. Okay, so again, if we've worked with your head of division, ideally those line items for your division are already there when your account is set up. But you can override those and you can put your own in, or if they're not there at all, you can set them up, okay? But they are exactly what will appear when you're creating an invoice. You'll touch on the line item code, and this drop down will appear for you to select the line items that you need. Okay, pipeline stages. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this one today, but it's really designed for when you get a new lead. You can manage that lead through what we call a sales pipeline. Now, for the typical gyms business, it's not a big deal. Normally, you get a lead in, you want to contact them straight away, and very quickly you know whether it's going to be a sale or not. Okay. For some of the businesses, however, there is a longer sales process, and to manage that process, so it might go from a cold lead through to a warm inquiry, through to a hot inquiry, through to a full prospect, and so there's actually what we see as a sales pipeline. And so in this section, you can set up that pipeline. You can assign a likelihood percentage of success to each stage of the pipeline. And so when you're looking at your overall pipeline, it sort of assigns those likelihood percentages to the value. And so the owner of the business can get a picture of what the real pipeline value is. So like I say, for most gyms businesses, it's a bit overkill. For others, where there is a more detailed sales process, then it's a very useful tool. And in exactly the same way as the quotes and invoice automation, you can generate automated communications to trigger as that prospect moves through the sales pipeline. Okay, the next one is the SMS gateway setup. So you don't have to use SMS. A lot of Jim's guys aren't using SMS. It's entirely up to you whether you use it or not. I know you haven't used it, or I don't believe you used it in the past, but it is available as a facility. In all of the automation, and we'll go through this in more detail once we get started in the app itself, you can trigger an SMS for almost everything, okay? Whether it's you're running late, so I want to send the client an SMS, I want to trigger automated reminders the day before I arrive or as soon as the job is completed, I can set up these automated SMS messages. Now, we would love to be able to use your device SMS, your mobile network SMS for this. Unfortunately, we can't at the moment, all right? At the moment, because we're using templates that we're pulling in from the system, we have to line the two up. We have managed to get voice to be used through your mobile rather than any other platform, but at the moment you need to buy SMS credits through the system. They're running at 8 cents each at the moment. That will go down, of course, over time, but normally you would buy $10 worth and have it automatically pop up when it gets low. As I said, it's not compulsory. It's there for you to use if you want to. All right, I'll speed this up a little bit because there's still more to get through. Emails, this just sets up your default email footer. Again, you can just use the placeholders to pull in those details. And the custom variables, when you're looking at your customer in the CRM, by default, we will have all of the standard things that you normally want to see about a customer. So things like the billing name, the primary contact, the billing terms, the contact type, the mobile phone number, email address. The standard business stuff will all be there automatically. But what you can also do is add your own custom fields. So you might want to record your client's birthday. And so you'll add birthday as a custom field. And so that will be sitting there waiting for entry whenever you go into a customer. All right? You can have as many of those as you like. It might be the type of lawn that they've got, the square meterage of their total property or something like that. Whatever additional information that you'd like to have available to you about that customer when you're looking at the customer, either in the management portal or in the app, those additional fields will be available. And you can add as many of those, as I said, as you like. The final one is the templates. So in the management portal CRM, you can create template emails. So these are emails that you're going to use over and over again. And this is where the templates that you've created will sit so that you can view them and edit them. Okay, so that is the primary settings. The other settings that I want to go through quickly are what we call job types. So I'm going to go to the jobs menu and then to job types. Now these are more commonly referred to in gyms as services, okay? You can set up a job type for each service that you do. So I'm just going to click on the weekly lawn care. So here you can see we've got 4 different job types. There's a name, a description, and a job title. There's also a color, and the color is the color that it will appear in the scheduler, this type of job. I'll click on this and just show you how it works. Okay, so the whole idea of a job type is a time-saving template, all right? You would build them for any jobs that you do over and over again, and again, it's all about trying to speed the process up. So for this job type, you can see across the top, there's a number of tabs. Job details, job status updates, future reminders, line items, and the recurring. On the job details tab, you put in the name, give it a title and a description, set the color that you'd like it to be in the scheduler, set the default duration, right? How long do you expect this job to be each time? So a typical lawn care is 30 minutes. A typical hedging might be an hour, whatever it is. It's not setting the rules, it's just setting the defaults, okay? So you can override it when you're actually creating the job, but it's setting the defaults just to save you time. Now, if you're using forms with our solution, there is also the ability to attach the right forms and the right safety forms for each type of job that you do. Now, I know for some divisions this is irrelevant, for other divisions it's critical, okay? They want to make sure that the right form is being attached to the right job, and equally they want to make sure that the right safety form is being attached to that type of job as well. So safety forms can range from a really simple 5-point PPE check, I've got the right equipment and the right safety gear to do this job, right through to a full 5-page safe work method statement, okay? So they need to be built, the forms. We have built a lot of forms for the gyms divisions already to work in these different ways. But that's the logic. And when I'm setting up this job type, I'm going to attach the form that I need to do the job and the safety forms that I need to do the job as well. And then underneath that, you'll see that there's a rule around the safety first side as to whether the user, the guy in the field with the app, has to finish the safety first form before they can even access the job form. All right? So this particularly, if you're doing a height work or electrical work or something like that, you need to make sure that the safety side is being completed and submitted, and then they go in and do the work. All right? Again, for knowing guys, not so important. You just want to get out there and do the job. You've got a standard safety sign-off that you've got covered. Up to you and up to your divisions how that's managed. But all of these things we're setting up to get this template as right, so there's as much automation going on as possible. Okay, job status updates is the next one for this job type template. And what this is all about is communication, okay? You can set up emails, SMS, letters, and create internal tasks whenever this type of job is created, assigned to a user, accepted by the user, completed, or becomes overdue. All right? So as the job is moving through its process, and as you're working through the job on the app, it will automatically change status through these 5 different stages, and you can automatically trigger communications to happen as it does. So an example might be when the job is accepted by a user, an email is automatically sent to the client thanking them for their business. Here's a picture of me, and we'll see you at the scheduled time. All right? Another one might be an SMS when the job is completed, to thank them for their business and say the job's complete. So you can have as many different communications, as many different job status updates as you like. You just press the green button to add more, and when you click on email, it will bring in whatever fields are required for the email, and you type in the text, and again use the Control+ to bring in the placeholders. If I just show you here, Control+ brings in the placeholders, and I can select from the CRM fields to set up the template wording. Now, I know it sounds a little bit complicated. If you need help, there's videos to watch to show you on each page, and I'll show you that in a moment. It's a bit of time and effort to set up, but once you've done it, all of that automation is just triggering off in the background. All of that communication is happening in the background. And we've had comments from many, many clients who are sole traders, working by themselves, but the customer thinks that there's a big admin team behind them with all of this communication and updates going on, but meanwhile the guy's just working. Okay, so that's job type, job status updates. The next one along is future reminders. Now, it's a big part of most of your businesses to make sure that if you do a job for a client, you get the repeat business. Okay? You want that reminder work to be followed through and backed up. So these future reminders, again, enable you to send as many emails, SMS, and letters as you like, and you can create those reminders X number of hours, days, or months, either before the job is due or after the job is completed. Okay? So for a pest controller that's doing an annual inspection, they want to make sure they get that client again in 12 months' time. So here they would set up, if this job type is annual pest inspection, they would set this reminder up A month before the job is due, it'll trigger a letter off, thanking them for the business and reminding them who they are and saying nice things. A week before, it will follow that up with an automated email as a reminder, and then the day before it can send a text. All right? So you would set up 3 different future reminders using the plus button, customize the wording to what you want, and once that job type is created, those future reminders are just triggering away automatically in the background. Okay, the next one is line items. Line items will create the invoice detail for this type of job. All right? So whenever I create a job for lawn care, it will automatically create an invoice and it will automatically bring in the correct line items for this type of job. All right? Now, you don't have to do it here. You can still go into the job and raise an invoice as you normally would. You can still do the job and raise an invoice. You can do the job, not raise an invoice. It's up to you. It's very flexible, and I'll show you the flexibility of the system later. But here, if you're doing the same type of job regularly and you want to raise the same invoice on the back of that, this is where you would do it and set it up. Okay. Next one is where you set up the recurring profile, and this is important for most Jim's divisions. Here is where you set up, if it's going to be a weekly job, you'll set it up here as a weekly job. If it's monthly, then whatever else. So again, just to avoid you having to go and set up the recurring detail every time you do a job, now you say, right, it's this job type, and automatically it will know what the recurring profile is. When you're doing it, you can set it up based on days, weeks, fortnights, months, years, whatever you like. You can see the whole range there. So if you're going to do it every 7 days, you can either pick week, or you can pick day and 7, or and then you can skip Saturdays and Sundays, for example. All right? If it's going to be monthly, you put it onto month. If it's every 2 months, make it 2. And then you can determine whether it will end based on the number of jobs. So this contract is only for 6 jobs, or you can select it based on the date when you want that contract to end, might be the 30th of June, for example. The last line is create, and that at the moment is set to 3 days before. So if you are building all of these recurring jobs, you don't necessarily want them all to be dispatched as they're being created. So the create field decides when you want that to happen. Now, I know a lot of gym guys are changing that out to 30 days rather than 3 because they want to see all of the next 30 days jobs automatically created. So that's up to you how you want that to appear. It's more designed to stop the app filling up with lots of jobs that you don't necessarily need to see today or even this week. All right, so they're the 2 primary settings, the job types that we've talked about, and then the CRM settings that we showed earlier. Okay. I think that's all we need to do on settings. I mentioned videos. On the right-hand corner here of the page, you can see a little video icon. If you click on that, it's a video on the page that you're looking at, okay? And through almost all key pages of the management portal, this video exists. So if you're not sure how the page works, just look for that video icon on the right-hand side, and it will give you a demonstration video on how that page works that you're looking at. Okay. In terms of user settings, it's probably one that we should have a really quick look at. If I click users at the top and then view users, if you're just working by yourself, not a big deal. If you do have other employees or contractors working with you, then this is where you'll see their details and where you add new users. Okay, so under the GIMS agreement, you can have multiple users on your account for no additional cost. If I click on an example, so I'll click on Blake, and this is where you set his permissions. Now, I won't go into too much detail about it because it's all there for you to see, but it does have some nice HR features as well if you do have some guys working with you. On the left-hand side is the panel with all of the the personal details and the emergency contact numbers and that sort of thing. On the right-hand side is the permissions and records section, and this determines what this user can and cannot see, both within the app and within the management portal. So if you are working by yourself, it will all be turned on by default, so you've got access to everything as the main administrator. If you have other people working with you, then this is where you will set the permissions in terms of what they can and can't see. All right. One important thing, I guess, down the bottom, if you are using our forms and reports as pest control do, for example, it will bring in here any specific fields that need to be completed for that particular individual. So here you can see that there's a termite insurance accreditation and a pest license field, because the system has detected that there's a report attached to this account that is requesting that information. Okay, so it'll automatically put those fields in to be completed. All right, very quickly across this page, the rest of it doesn't make too much difference for you, but it is a nice little HR module if you want to use it. You can record the qualifications of this particular person. When you do record the qualifications, you can put in the expiry date of their license or their certificate. The system will monitor that for you. So if they have a first aid course, you put in the date that certificate expires, and the system will remind you when that needs to be updated. You can store training details with the same reminders. You can upload documents, so there might be their CV or their references from other people. You can add file notes about that individual into the system here, and you can also send notifications straight to their mobile device. So if you type something in there and hit submit, they'll get a ping notification on their tablet or phone. All right, so I know I've gone through that very quickly, but hopefully that gives you a flavor for the primary settings. The only other one to be aware of is the user profile and the company settings at the top. Most of those will be completed for gyms automatically. We pull that information in, but if there is something missing or the phone number's wrong or you want to update your email, then this is where you do it, in the company settings and then in the user settings. All right, so you can see that information's all presented there. Okay, so I think that closes off our time on settings.
Thank you, Matt. I'll get you to pull up the PowerPoint questions or notice, please. While you're doing that, we had a question from New Zealand via the webinar. The question is, the SMS function costs 8 cents to send. Is that for New Zealand as well? What's the cost for New Zealand?
That's a good question. It does vary on a country-by-country basis. And I don't know, it does adjust automatically based on exchange rate. So I will, if I can get the contact of that person, we'll present that separately.
Okay, we'll come back to you on that question out of New Zealand.
Yes.
There are some more questions on notice. The first one is out of New Zealand as well. There were some issues related to Australian dollars, tax rates all set in Australian currencies and denominations. What about New Zealand?
Right, so when we take the import from the gym systems, it should be correctly detecting that it's a New Zealand account. If it does that, items like tax and prefix numbers should automatically set correctly as they would with every other country that we work in. If we're finding that's not the case, please just contact Formitize directly and we'll adjust the settings to confirm that it's a New Zealand-based client, or I know there's UK and Canadian businesses and gyms as well. As I say, if we take the feed correctly from gyms to identify it as a New Zealand business, all of those settings should be default.
We had a question over here from the floor.
Yeah, just with the recurring jobs, I noticed there was weekly, fortnightly and monthly. With the mowing, quite often we have 3 weekly jobs. So are we able to type in say 21 days, or are those the other options we have?
So recurring jobs, the only options are weekly, monthly, or can you do every 3 weeks?
Yeah, you can. So all you do is to make it 3 weekly, select weekly, and then make the frequency 3.
Okay.
And it'll make it 3 weekly. Or you can do 21 days, but either way.
Yep.
So it's a little bit deceiving in terms of how it's worded, and we have actually changed the wording in the app to make it a little bit clearer. but that's what you do. You make it weekly, and then select the frequency as 3, and that will be a 3 weekly recurring.
Next question on the PowerPoint, please, Matt. If we go to the next slide. So a question, can my wife use it at home whilst I'm in the field using the app? I don't think it needs to be limited to your wife. Can 2 people use it while you're using it in the app?
The answer to that, yes, absolutely. There's no limit to the number of users on the account, so I'm just going to make sure this is presenting properly to people at home. Okay. Yes. So multiple people can be using the management portal at once, and multiple people can be using the app. All right. You can have hundreds of people using the app all at once, and multiple people using the management portal at the same time. No problem.
Excellent. Can I get separate logins for my employees? The next question.
Absolutely can. Yes. In fact, we encourage it. All right. The accountability comes down to the individual login. So if you've got multiple people coming in on the same login, it's very difficult to detect who's actually doing what. So please set up each individual person that's using the system as an individual user. Give them their own logins. You do that through the user settings that we just looked at. Create your own users, give them the permissions that you want to, and that way you're collecting them, their time, their dates, they'll have their own schedule. Definitely the right way to do it.
Next slide, please, Matt. Does it automatically sync when I'm in the field, or do I need to press a sync button? Are the next questions.
Okay. So it does automatically sync. It saves to the device every 15 seconds. However, you can force a sync as well. So when I move on to the app, I'll show you how to do that. Basically, when you're on the home page, you've got the home icons on the page. At the top of the page is a little grey arrow. You slide the page down until that arrow changes direction, release it, and that will force the sync in the app. So again, as I said, we'll have a look at that when we're reviewing the app.
Excellent. We have some questions from the webinar. If you have more than one Xero company, can you choose which Xero company?
You can, yes. So when you're setting up the Xero account with us, it will take you to your Xero profile, and that's when you select the profile that you want linked to Formitize. We don't encourage you to link to more than one Xero account. It should be one Formitize account to one Xero account. So if you're running multiple Xeros, we encourage you to run multiple Formitize to match.
Thank you. We have a few more questions from the webinar. Will emails we send to clients in Formitize have standard GIMS icons?
The email that goes to a customer from Formitize will have the GIMS logo for the divisions that you're in. So when you set up your account with us, it will automatically know what division that you're in, and on the basis of that, we'll pull in the correct logo and colors.
Next question. When using the automatic reminder function, if you set it to remind someone in 6 weeks to rebook, but they've already rebooked at 5 weeks, does that cancel out the reminder being sent out?
It doesn't at the moment, but it will very soon. We're adding a confirmation button that when a job is confirmed by the client, it will store as an option the reminders from then on. It will be set as an option because we have a lot of clients that want those reminders to continue regardless of whether the job's been confirmed or not. So the customer might say, yes, I want it done, but there's still every chance that you want to remind that customer that it is going to happen. But there will be an option to turn off the reminders once the job is confirmed.
Excellent, thank you, Matt. Next question, we'll take a question from the webinar first. In status updates, the text messages I send, will they still cost me 8 cents?
Yes, any SMS being sent costs 8 cents.
Okay, I'll take a question from the floor, please.
How far off is integration with Mile?
So I will cover that at the end because I've got the time frames for everything. The MyOb is already in development, and we are aiming for the end of December for MyOb Essentials.
Excellent. We've got time for one more question from the webinar. The last one, will the help videos always be available?
Absolutely, yes, and we are updating them all the time as well. As you're probably seeing, the system is being updated and renewed regularly. We're roughly doing an app release every 2 weeks, so it's not to confuse people, but just to make it smoother and make it better and make it more adapted to what you're looking for. And so the help videos will follow on in that same way.
Thank you, Matt. Any other questions, either from the webinar or from the floor? We are happy to capture later on. For those of you who are on site, you have the added benefit of having Phil and Matt at morning, afternoon tea and lunch and dinner if you're staying. So you'll get to pick their brains then. For webinar questions, anyone that hasn't had their question answered, please feel free to keep typing them through. We'll capture them, put them on a document and send them out to everyone. With that, I think, Matt, we'll move on to the next session, please.
All right, so the next session is on uploading customers. So I've returned now to the management portal. Let's make sure this is showing for everybody. Okay. So let's go into the CRM. So the CRM is in the top left-hand corner, second button from the left. And for those of you that haven't seen the CRM, this is what it looks like. On the left-hand side is a timeline that shows all of the activity that's been going on within the account. So you can see the top ones there are a new job being created, a quote's been converted to an invoice, a quote's been added, a note has been added to a client, an invoice has been created, and so on. So this is a timeline of events, all time and date stamped, with links that can take you to the relevant document or the relevant client in the blue color. On the left-hand side is the communication tab, and underneath that is a task management system. So if you've got internal tasks that are going on or you've created tasks to be done, they're all sitting in that bottom section for the person that has logged in here. If we move into the contact section, I can do this in two ways. I can either click on contacts in the top, or I can click directly on a contact link on the right-hand side, but let's hit the left-hand side, right? Let's just go in and have a look at the contact. So as I said earlier, if you are integrating with Xero, when you click the Xero integration, all of this information will just auto-populate. When you come back in the next 3 or 4 minutes, it will bring all of the contact information, all of their details, their status, whether they're a customer or a supplier, etc. But here we are with the details. Now, if you haven't done that, we would hope that through the GIMS system, we'll be able to import your contact details. There are a number of different systems obviously being used by GIMS, so each of those has a slightly different import process, but GIMS and Infotech are extremely helpful and will take you through that process and make sure that your data is coming through and available. The other way to import information if you're using external systems is to hit the import button, and this will create and lay out exactly how Formitize needs to receive the information. Now, it's done by way of a CSV file. And a CSV file is basically like an Excel spreadsheet, putting all of your data into the right column structure. Okay, so here we've given instructions on what that structure is. The blank format provides a blank CSV with the right heading titles, and then the next one over gives an example of how that data would look to get it right. It is important, obviously, you've probably heard the saying, rubbish in, rubbish out. It's worth spending a little bit of time to make sure that the information going into the system is as accurate as possible. So it's often a good exercise to clean up and do some housekeeping on the database. Once you've got it in the format that you want and it's right, then you can import that information into the system. So there's quite detailed notes there just to help you with any questions or common questions are all detailed there, and then away you go. As I said, the idea with GIMS, and we're getting better and better at it between us, is that we can't pull information from the GIMS systems, that there is no link for that. We have to rely on the GIMS system pushing to us, and that's managed directly through the GIMS Infotech team. So I won't go into too much detail around that. It's a separate subject based on the system that you're currently using. When I say that, is it GIMS Jobs, is it Jimbo app, etc. All right, but that's how you import information into the contacts in bulk. Now, to add new contacts, you can either hit the green New Lead button, or you can hit the New Contact button. Most of this, for most of you, will be done through the app. So what I'll do now is jump across into the app, and we'll just show you quickly how that side of it works. Right. All right, sorry, we're just having to switch devices here, get this done. Okay, so here we are in the app. Sorry for that delay. Jumping between portals and apps and what's it. When you log into the app, this is your home page. If I go to the leads section in the bottom left-hand corner, this brings up the leads that have come in from the GIMS system. So that's automatic. When a lead is dispatched from GIMS, it will come in here as a new lead. When it comes in as a new lead, it automatically creates that lead as a contact as well. So you don't have to go and set them up as a separate contact. That happens automatically. The information that is presented should be exactly what comes through from GIMS. So it will automatically assign the lead ID. It will bring in the different contact information. Down the right-hand side, you can see a recent addition that we've brought in to help the GIMS guys. It shows what's happened with that lead so far. Okay, so you can see on the right-hand side at the top, there's a grey tab called cold. So that's showing the status of the lead. A lot of you guys won't be using statuses, so you don't need to worry about that. But the status relates to the filters at the top. So I talked about the sales pipeline before. As that lead moves through the different stages of the pipeline, that grey tab will indicate what stage they're up to. The next blue tab says job, so that shows you that this lead has been converted to a job. And there's an orange tab to show that it has also been converted to an invoice. Okay, so without having to go into the lead, you can very quickly see the status of those leads, and that's all. You can then filter across the top, so you can look at the leads that have been lost, the leads that are in the cold stage, the warm stage, and the hot stage if you set them up, and it filters all of those automatically. To the other new element that's been added, I'll just try and find one that's got the detail in here, is the notes section at the bottom of the lead. So you can see in the history section there, it shows when the lead was added. If any notes have been added, it records those notes against the lead, so you can see those in the history. When the lead is converted from a lead to a quote, it records that and shows you when. When that quote is then converted to an invoice, it records the date and time of that happening. If you're adding any notes to the lead through the process, they're also recorded right through to the stage when money is taken. So it'll show you when the invoice was sent and when it was paid. So you can go into any lead, either in the management portal or in the app, to create them, and then this history is building against the lead as well. So hopefully that will look useful to you.
Now you just need to unfreeze that screen. You need to share. That's it.
Okay. All right, so there's the history at the bottom. You can also see then you've got the options of adding a note at any time, converting to a job or an invoice from the lead straight from there. So this section is about uploading new leads, new inquiries. If I go back to the main lead page, by hitting the plus button in the right-hand corner, I can add my own lead as well. So this is the one that's come from Jim's. It's one that you're adding there and then as your own inquiry. If it's an existing client, then it will search. If it's a new client, it'll take you through to set up the new client details. It presents quite a lot of information to collect. Obviously, it's up to you as to how much detail you want to go into. You might just put Dave at Dave's address and leave it at that. Alternatively, you might want to add all of the information about that new customer to set that up. Very quickly while we're here, and we're going to cover leads in more detail shortly, but just while we're on the page, that's how you create a lead. You can also create a new contact. If it's not a lead, it's just a general contact. Then you go into contacts in exactly the same way. That will list all of your customers, and you'll see down in the bottom right-hand corner there is a blue button to create a new contact. All right, so that's uploading. You can upload it as a bulk file through the management portal, CSV. You can upload as an import automatically from Xero as an accounting solution. That will also be available for the other accounting solutions when they're completed. You can import the CSV file from MYOB or QuickBooks. So any system that can export the CSV file out, you can then format it and bring it into Formitize. So it's not like those customers aren't available. It's just a two-step process rather than the Xero one, which is just all completely automatic. So that's on the portal side. On the app side, you can add a new lead, which will also create the contact, or you can just create the contact straight through the contact section. Okay, we're probably going short on that one, but that's covered most points, I think.
We can go to questions on notice from the webinar. So we have a few questions on notice from the webinar. Will a CSV from Jimbo integrate with Formitize?
Yes, it will, providing it's in the right format. So when I say format, the column headings have just got to be in the right structure. It's very easy to move columns around to get it into the format that's right. And yes, it will.
Another question here from the webinar. When will Formitize get the company name from FMS and populate that in the correct field in Formitize? In Jim's test and tag, we use the company name for billing, etc., and this needs to be on invoices, etc., pulled from the CRM fields. I think that's a matter of us developing a push from FMS. Is that correct, Matt?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what that relates to, as in where it's not populating. So whoever sent that, we'll make sure we come back to you on, get some more detail on that.
Okay. We've got that one. That's previous. Okay. I will go to the questions on notice on the PowerPoint, please, Matt.
Any questions from the floor on clients? Yes, sir.
Just the regular clients, we just have to go to view contact customer, and there'll be a regular clients in that area there.
Do you go to view contact customer?
Yep, correct. So go into contacts in the app, and all of your contacts will be listed there.
So you've got to choose more contact clients to see regular clients. Any contact client customer, is that a tag on for your regular clients?
So if you go into, I'll have to bring the app back up to show you that, but they will be tagged as customer type. That's one of the settings, if you like. There's also a search bar at the top, so if you know the name, you can search and find it very quickly.
Okay. Question over here, please.
It's just hard to see, but when you pulled up the leads before,
yes.
It didn't seem to have an address in every field.
So it's an interesting point. We should be presenting whatever is coming from Jim's. It will certainly be populated into the contact field as well. So I believe it should be there if it's provided. I'll check on that.
Let's take a question over here, please.
Yep. Underneath the contact, when you're under location, there wasn't a field where you create that location, you can't delete the location.
Delete the location. Maybe you want to pull back up the leads.
Okay, I'll come back to that when we get off the PowerPoint. Yep. So the idea of locations, just so you're aware, you might have, an example is you've got the estate agent that is the billing contact, and then you might have 4, 5, 10, 50 different properties that you are locations under that contact. So the billing will go to the real estate agent, but underneath the billing name is a location field, and that will present the location underneath the billing name.
There's an option to create,
yep.
But when my information is populated over,
yep.
the billing address is in the location.
Okay.
So we have to delete that out because it's not the location. There is no delete field. There's an edit button. There's no delete.
Okay. Check on that.
Okay.
There was permissions around that because you might have multiple users, we didn't want access for everybody to go and delete. So it is being added very shortly. It'll probably be in the next week. So yeah, it just had to be a permission thing of how it would work. You don't, if you've got guys out in the field with you, you just don't want anyone being able to delete whatever they want.
So permissions around deletion.
I wasn't even aware of that, so there you are. Good, thank you.
And you have another question over there?
Yeah, one of the problems I've got with Formitize is I've got to leave Jim's and they put in the email section client, I can no longer edit any information in the login.
So if you get an email from Jim's,
yep.
they put the client data in which section?
In the email section.
In the email section?
The email field has lines in it. I cannot do any editing in that field. It will always come back and say, no, won't accept.
So client data in the email.
I think that's something that Formitize, that's the first I've heard of it, but if there's other people get the issue, we need to find out why that data is coming from Jim's with the client in it. As soon as we work that out, we'll...
And ask for the...
Okay.
Or email.
Can you guys come and see me? I'll get your codes and we'll have a look at the invoice.
Okay, we'll take a couple of questions on notice from the screen there, please. Matt, on PowerPoint. Do I set up my customers in the portal or the app?
So ideally you do it in the portal, just particularly on bulk. You can't do it in the app on bulk. So the quick answer to that is the bulk uploads do in the portal, the spontaneous additions do in either.
Next question, should I set up the client schedule in the portal or the app first?
I tend to prefer the portal for that just because it's faster. However, if you're in the field and you want to set it up there and then, there's no reason why you can't set it up in the app. So that's really down to convenience.
Next question, do I need to put all of the client details into Formitize, for example, historical notes?
No, you don't need to. I guess that's more of a personal decision as to how much history that you want. Again, it's a personal choice, but as far as Formitize is concerned, obviously you're starting from now and moving forward. There may be some things that you want to bring across. Certainly things like the custom CRM fields, I think probably are important to bring across. So if you've got those custom fields that I talked about, the customer's birthday or the property size, those sorts of things that you've collected that are important about the customer, you can add those as custom fields for that contact and import that information.
Question from the webinar, how do I edit a customer's details, for example, adding in an email address?
So there's two answers to that. Unfortunately, we have to jump between the management portal and the app. But in the management portal, let's jump across and have a look. Okay, so I'm moving back to the management portal. Make sure everyone's online. So we're editing a contact. So I will go into the contact. One moment we know. ABC Transport. We'll click into the contact. And on the left-hand side is the contact panel. So you've got the billing details, shipping address, if that's important, the different people related to that contact. So you may have a general manager, an operations manager, or a husband and wife, whatever it might be. And then you have the locations that we talked about before. To edit this page, just click the pencil in the top right-hand corner, and that will bring up all of the fields available for edit. Make whatever changes you want to. You can also add custom fields here, so you can see that the mobile and the work phone and the website are all there already. You can add additional fields from here. Make sure to see people at home. So I'll just take that back for those that missed it. In the top right-hand corner of the contact page is a little edit pencil. That brings up the modal to then go and change any of the contact details. And here are the standard fields, and this is where you add the custom fields. Okay?
Okay. Any more questions from the floor? One question over here, yes, sir.
If I put in a new contact,
Yep.
does that get uploaded to the service website?
If you put in a new contact on Formitize, does it get uploaded to Jim's?
Unfortunately, it doesn't yet, but we are in discussions to get that enabled, so that you don't have to go back in and enter the client back into it. So not yet, but it's on the list.
Would that be optional?
Absolutely, yes, it will be optional, definitely.
I think we'll jump back to the questions on notice. Sorry to jump here. In fact, I'll read them. So next question in relation to client data imports and clients. Is there a standard quote or invoice template I use, or do I need to set that up first? Is it the same for every client? And can I have a set invoice?
So the answer to that is yes, there is a standard quote and invoice template. So it's all done for you. You don't need to do anything. It will bring in your contact details, the Jim's logo that's relevant to your division and your colors for that division as well. So that's all built in. You don't need to do anything. For those divisions that have particularly complex invoices that have diagrams and other components, we may need to break out of the CRM invoice for that and build that as a formatized form that will generate the look and feel of the invoice that's required. But we're really trying to avoid that because it breaks a number of the different processes. So what we're doing instead, and this will be of interest to a lot of people, we're beefing up the invoice so that it will include photos, before and after photos, client signatures, and the drawing plan function that we have in our forms. So in the forms, you can have a drawing tool where you can import either photos or floor plans or site plans. So this is big for guys like fencing, for example. They can take a photo and draw over it, or they can bring in a site plan or a floor plan and draw over it, and those images can be embedded in both the quotes and the invoices. So that's coming in the either the December or the November release. I can't remember which, but we'll go through that towards the end.
Excellent. Another question, can I print my client list? Can I print active clients? And can I print non-active clients?
Good question. I haven't been asked that one before. You can certainly filter your clients by type. So if we go into the contacts page, you can set up as many different contact types or categories as you want to. So you can see here under type, we've got a number of different tags. So you can create those tags and call them whatever you like. And then you can filter, as you can see at the top, by contact type and status. So they can certainly be separated. In terms of printing, obviously we're a paperless solution, so we don't encourage print. The only way you can do it at the moment, I think, is probably a screen print, but you can go into reporting. This is not quite print stage, but in the report section, you can go into contacts and you can filter your contacts by anything. So when you're in the contacts tab, you'll see all of the different filters that are available, including the sources, where the lead came from, the status, the type. If you add that filter and then filter by contractors, for example, that will filter this list all the way through. So you can add as many filters to that as you want to get exactly the information that you're looking for. And then you can download that file as a CSV or Excel spreadsheet, for example. Download it as a CSV file that you can then print. Okay, so it's a long-winded answer, but you can get there in the end. And you can filter it way beyond just the type. You can actually apply all of those filters that I showed you for the contact within that section.
Thank you. Question? We have a question from the webinar from Rick Larkin. When my contacts were transferred over, my real estate came across multiple times because a contact was raised for every site address. Is there a fix for that? So repeat the question. When my contacts were transferred over, my real estate came across multiple times because a contact was raised for every site address. Is there a fix for that?
The way to avoid it, and yes, we will fix it for whoever's had an issue with it, if it will be an import issue. I'm not sure how that particular data was imported, but the way to avoid it is when you do the import, we'll just have a quick look at this. I'm not sure, it may have automatically come through from Jim's in this scenario, I don't know, but if you look at the example data, it will bring up the CSV expected format, and it does demonstrate how to, clients at home probably aren't seeing this, I'm afraid, but it does show how to present duplicate information. So the billing name has to be the same in each line item. I'll show this. So I went into customers and then import that we talked about earlier. and then I selected the example CSV file to show how it should look. And you can see under billing name, the billing name has to be exactly the same for each line. So ABC Transport here has the 3 lines of data coming in for ABC Transport, different contacts, and if there are different locations, then the same would apply. So the billing name has to be the same in each column for that data to not be replicated. If there has been an issue on an individual import, then please let us know, and our team will certainly help to help you to clean that up.
Rick, I think we'll take that one offline. Then we've got a question from the floor.
How do we create a filter as regular clients? Contacts.
Okay.
Yes, we get filter back in settings.
How do we create a filter for regular clients?
So yes, go to contact.
Yep.
There's a couple of different ways to do it, but I'll just go into one contact and show you. When you go into the contact itself, if you hit on the edit button, under contact type, you can put in here whatever types that you want, and that will create a new filter option.
In the contact page.
Yep. Yep. So whatever you add here, it automatically creates the filter in the drop downs on the right hand side. You can add as many different types of customers as you want. Is that showing? Okay.
We have another question on notice. I think this one's for Jim's group. Will my customers be transferred if I'm buying a split or a resale? The answer to that is you need to make a request to infotech@jims.net, and soon there'll be an FMS4 modification that will automatically transfer the customers when a mass transfer is performed. So that one's coming soon. Any more questions from the floor? Okay, if there are no more questions, we will finish this session here for a break until...
Sorry, Barry. I did realise I didn't show the contacts in the app. I'll quickly show that. That was one of the questions that I neglected to answer. So on the contact side, we're going into contact. Someone asked about editing a contact in the app, and I completely missed it, so my apologies there. If I click on the contact in the app, that brings up their details. And very similarly to the CRM, you can see that there's billing as the sub menu, and then people, and then locations. So that's a sub menu under the contact. You've got the other tabs there as well. So jobs will show the jobs for this customer, any notes for the customer, leads for the customer, and then you've got the financials on the customer. And again, that's now got 2 sub-menus, quotes, invoices, and expenses. But up in the top right-hand corner, and it is a little bit hidden, is these 3 dots. If you click on that, it shows you how to edit the details, create a new contact, new note, new job, new invoice. So it's a sub-menu to manage the settings for that particular customer. So I meant to show that earlier and missed it. So that's where that is.
A question from the floor.
Yeah, sorry, is that available in the offline mode for the app?
Everything is available in the offline mode for the app.
With the locations, can you jump from, click on that and maybe into Google Maps and see where you're going?
From location, can you get to Google Maps in the app?
Within the job, you can. So if you are going into a job, here's the jobs page. Yep. Right. This is the jobs page. So across the top, you can see that there are filters. The first one is all jobs. Then you've got day, week, and queue. Now, day is your run sheet, basically, the jobs that are to be done today. And we are getting multiple requests from gyms users to be able to generate a run sheet. okay? We're prepared to do it, but the perfect scenario is that anybody that's working for you has the app and they will go in and see their jobs for the day in the time and date order, okay? So we are open to building the run sheet. The run sheet is a piece of paper that shows the jobs for the day or the week. They hand them over to the guys, and the guys are making handwritten notes on that piece of paper and then bring it back at some time. Obviously, it goes against who we are, but we also appreciate that in some situations, that's what's going to work best. So we will be adding a tab to the scheduler that will enable the generation of printed run sheets. But for today, unfortunately there's none in there, but all you do is hit day and it will present today's jobs in time and date order. They can also see the jobs for the week. The queue function, and we'll cover this off in jobs, so I don't want to get into too much detail now, but in the queue function, you can assign, if you've got multiple contractors working for you, for example, you can push the job out to all of the contractors, and whoever accepts it first gets it. So it's kind of like a taxi queue or taxi rank solution, and it's more done for the contractor type environment. So I don't care who does it, as long as someone does it, they do it quickly. It's a good thing for emergency type work. Dispatch it, whoever swipes it and gets it, and it disappears from the job list as soon as somebody has accepted it. But to get back to your question, I'm sorry, I'm taking off on a different tangent here. When you are looking at the job, you swipe from the left to the right to call, SMS or email the client. You swipe from the right to either accept, reject or reschedule the job. When you go into the job, I'm finally getting to your question here, you can hit the show map blue button underneath the location, and that gives you the location of that job. Sorry, too fast. From where you are to the job location, and you just hit hide it if you don't want to see it. If you're using the app to its full potential, you can then hit the en route button, which gives you the location, directions and guidance from where you are to where the job is. While you're traveling, it records your travel time. If you take a travel break, you can pause that and it'll record your break time. You hit resume to go back. If you're running late, you hit the late button. You can either call or SMS the client to let them know that you're running late. Put in the expected arrival time now of 3:30 p.m. and that will notify the customer that you're going to be arriving at that time. And then when you have arrived, you hit the arrive button, the map disappears and you're ready to get started on the job. So what we would like to do, and we are considering, is that when you're looking at both the leads page and the jobs page, based on whatever filter you've done, you will be able to get a map overview of whatever you're looking at, which will really help in synchronizing your route or your route of jobs to save time. So it is in the development pipeline to give a map overview, and it'll show the markers in an order that you can rearrange to maximize time.
Does it also have the voice directions?
When you hit route guidance, it uses Google's route direction. Yeah.
Oh, we have a question from the back of the room.
How can I change the contact type when the client has no email address?
How can I
change the contact type when the contact has no email address? Because for contacts which have the email address, I can do it. For one which has no email address, that actually shows an error.
How can you change the contact type for a client who has no email address?
Without checking it, I'm not sure why the email address makes any difference to changing the contact type. There's two different fields, so we'll have a look at your individual case and see where that's going wrong.
Okay, we'll take that offline. We've got one last question from the webinar. Will franchisors have access to franchisee client databases, and can they see franchisee client databases?
Is that me?
Let's talk technically first.
Technically, no one can see a franchisee's information other than the franchisee.
And from Jim's point of view,
we certainly don't want to see things like financial data or customer type data. The opportunity there is for efficiency improvements. If we see things like time and date of calling the customer, there's an opportunity for those types of efficiency things. But from our point of view, we're not looking at the details of franchisees.
I can honestly say in all my discussions with Jim and the IT team around this, that there is no interest in understanding or having any visibility of financials. I'm not just saying that, it's absolutely true. So we do take calls from franchisees that are concerned about visibility. Personally, I think it would be a good idea if overall statistics were somehow available so that gyms as a group is benefiting from success rates and response times and quote conversions and invoice results and all that sort of information. I think would be a valuable thing for all of you to benefit from as a group. But in terms of the individual financials of a franchisee, Jim himself has said that it's absolutely not of interest to him in terms of something that he'll ever want visibility of. And so I've been very, very happy that that's been the approach.
I think we have got one question here from the webinar. Is there an option for multiple phone numbers, client and site addresses, if you're running late and you need to contact the customer?
Good, that's a good one. And there is a big development going through which will be released for the end of November, which I'll go through in more detail later, but it does exactly that. It narrows down the contact to the location, and so all communications, there'll be an option to communicate with the location contact rather than the billing contact for that location. Surprisingly, we haven't done it already, but yes, it's coming. I'm pretty sure it's the end of November. It may be the end of December, but it's definitely coming.
I think one last question from the floor.
Will franchisors have access to franchising files with the pipeline for would be excellent, right?
So the intention absolutely is for the franchisors to have their own version of Formitize to absolutely manage those leads and the communication with franchisees. All of that can be very nicely monitored and tracked and reminders set and everything else. So again, Jim personally come to me with the intention of doing that because, and some of the things that we've added, particularly the note tracking for the lead, is coming from Jim's requirement to help the franchisor stay on top of that stuff.
Do you have a timeline on that?
A lot of it's already done, actually. It's already in there. So the tricky part is how does the franchisor use that information, which is what we're working on now. Obviously, there's a lot of communications going on, or there should be, every month. So although we're collecting it all now already, how is that presented to be of any value to anybody? So
it's a pre-sale, not just post-sale.
100%. So you're right. Sorry, I was talking more about the contacts once they are a franchisee. The sales pipeline is absolutely perfect for developing a franchisee to it.
Okay, we're going to close the morning first session here. We'll start sharp at 11 a.m. For the next session. So morning tea is outside. For those of you on site, webinar team, we'll see you again at 11 a.m. sharp. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, folks, we're going to kick off the session. For those of you on the webinar, can you hear me? Apologies for the delay, minor technical issues. Everyone good? Okay, now we're going to hand over to Matt for the lead section. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Okay, so we'll show you the lead side on both the management portal and the app. We've got the management portal open already, so we'll approach it from here. Across the top, so we've gone into CRM in the top menu, so that we're in our customer management system, and then go to pipeline. Now, pipeline may be a little bit confusing because you're probably looking for leads, so sorry about that, but the pipeline manages the leads. So when you go into pipeline, you'll see all of your leads in their current status. Now, we talked a little bit about the sales pipeline earlier. So this is how it looks in the management portal. You can see the different lead detail, the reference, which is where it came from, phone numbers if it's available, an expected close date if it's available. And this, as we talked about, maybe more valuable for more complex sales processes where you're having to take them through the different stages. The pipeline stage that they're in, the expected value, and then the pipeline value. Now, the pipeline value is a percentage of the expected value, okay? If this isn't relevant for you, you can switch off for a little while, but I'll just explain the concept. When you set up your pipeline in the pipeline settings, so we went to CRM settings and then to pipeline stages. Make sure it's working at home as well. So I've gone into the settings in the top menu, and then I've selected pipeline stages. Okay, so here you can see there's two columns, the percentage and what you want to call the stage name. So if the lead is lost, it's got a percentage likelihood of success of 0. If it's cold, you can make that 5%. As the lead gets warmer, it's 50%. As it's hot, it's 75%. And then when it's converted to either a job or an invoice, you can make that 100 if you want to. So the idea is that as it moves through these different stages, the percentage likelihood of winning the business increases, and it applies that percentage to the total value. So if we go back now to have a look at the pipeline, so I'm hitting CRM in the top corner, and then pipeline. Bring that pipeline page up. Here it is. Okay. So there's that detail, and you can see there's an expected value of $150, but because it's cold, that 5%'s been applied to it, so the pipeline value is only $7.50. The benefit of it is at the bottom, you can see the total expected value and total pipeline value. Okay? So just remember, this is a future lead. This isn't current existing business. This is of future leads. And then you can filter it based on the different pipeline stages, who's responsible for closing the deal, put in the date ranges, or you can go in and look at the filters based on, I just want to look at my lost leads, and you might want to go and action those. Okay, so that's the sales pipeline within the management portal. And to create a new lead, you click on the new lead button on the right-hand side and go ahead and complete those details. Whatever you're adding here in the management portal will appear as a lead in the app as well. All right, so we'll go across to the app now, because that will show you practically how it's going to be used in the field. So while waiting for that screen to change over, what I didn't show was the actions that you can figure off that screen. So make that visible. There's a number of actions that you can figure straight from the lead in the portal. If you click on the green action button, you'll see that it can be, this has already been converted to a quote. The converted to column shows what's happened to that lead so far. So here you can see these three have been converted to quote. This has been converted to a quote and then to a job. So whatever actions are available will be sitting in the action button. And if you want to edit the details of that quote, then you just hit the edit button. That will bring up the quote page and you can go through and edit any of the details in here. The history will all be built underneath the bottom section of the lead as well. Okay, there's a lot more to the lead, especially in the portal. You've got the ability to create checklists and things like that, but we won't get too much into the detail of that today. All right, so let's go back to the app. I'm just going to switch this across so everybody at home can see it as well. Let's wait for that to come on. Okay, so we've got the app overlay, there we are. Right, so let's jump into leads, the star in the bottom left-hand corner. This shows all of the leads that have come on. We had a really quick look at this before. On the left-hand side are the lead details that have come through from the gym system. The right-hand tabs show what's happened to that lead so far already. I can go into the lead to have a look at the detail by just clicking on it. That will bring up the lead details. The notes section is there already. You can add information to the details that are already there. So you just touch on that lead page, the box in the details, and you can either type it in or there's a microphone button down next to the space bar. You can just touch on that. And now as I speak, the app will convert voice to text and add it into the lead details. So hopefully you can see that on the screen. What I just said has been added into that details section. In terms of activity, if we go back to the lead itself, when you're looking at the leads page, there's a number of things that you can do without going into the lead. So again, you can swipe from left to right, and that will call, SMS, or email the client. You can swipe from the right to the left, and from here you can change the lead stage. So that's moving it into a different stage within the sales pipeline, or you can convert it to a job, or you can convert it to an invoice. If it's already been converted to an invoice, the orange invoice tab is showing that you've already converted this to an invoice. So instead of convert to invoice, it's now got view invoice, okay? Because you've already converted it to an invoice, so it's going to take you into view it instead. When you're calling, it will, if you've got this hooked up to a phone, of course, you can make that call. Underneath that are the call notes. So when you're calling the customer, I'm on an iPad here, so it's not going to work. But when you've finished, you can just touch on that, and in exactly the same way, you can now add call notes, which will record this note against the call that it's just made for this customer. Okay, so really useful, really quick, and again, that note will now be saved against the customer. Hit add note to save it, but also recorded the call duration of that call and its time and date stamp. So that will be added as a note into that lead. All right. Now, one of the challenges of working with gyms is to make this as flexible as possible. With a lead, there's a number of different options in terms of how it can be treated. Some of you will want to go from a lead to create a quote, and from the quote, you'll go and create a job, and within the job, you'll create an invoice, and the invoice will then be paid and completed. Others will want to go from the lead straight to invoice, forget the job, forget the quote. Okay, so we have tried to make it as flexible as we possibly can so that you can just side swipe. These have all got actions against them, unfortunately. But if it was just a lead with nothing done, you can side swipe and convert to job, convert to quote, convert to invoice from either of those options. Okay, the filters across the top, just as we talked about those pipeline stages, just enables you to filter between those different stages to see where those leads are up to. Okay, I think that probably covers off leads. It will carry that lead reference all the way through. So if you convert a lead to a quote or to an invoice, it will tag the lead ID all the way through, so that if you go into accounts and look at your quotes, you can see at the bottom of this top one, it's got lead ID 123. So it has tracked that lead from the original lead source through into the quote. And then when I look at the quote, I can see that I've won it. I've converted it to an invoice and the job has been done on that quote. Okay, I think we're going to cover quotes separately, so I won't go into too much more detail on the lead. But that's just demonstrating the lead from the app and from the management portal. If you want to create a new lead without receiving it from Jim's, then as I think we touched on this earlier, you just hit the plus bottom in the bottom right-hand corner, and that brings up the information needed to create the lead. If it's an existing client, you just touch on that and it'll bring up your client list, so you identify who it's for. It'll populate all of the known details for that customer. If it's a new customer, it'll bring the new customer page, and so you go and add that customer, including their type. Someone asked about that earlier. You can select the type of customer they are, etc. from there. And like I said, there are a lot of fields there available to be completed. It's up to you how much detail you want to do when creating that new lead. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Matt. Any questions on leads from the floor? Yes, please.
Just one question. If you just create a quote, that doesn't automatically put it then into the pipeline or into the leads for existing customers.
So does a quote automatically filter into the pipeline?
Yeah, for example, we might do, 5 quotes for existing customers, but they're not going to appear in our pipeline. I can get it automatically.
So the traditional use of pipeline is before it gets to quote stage. So you are warming this customer up to become either a quote or invoice.
For one customer, but then also actually ask us to quote gardening,
yep.
down the track, or garden cleaning, or pressure washing,
okay.
sort of services that got that.
So at any time, okay. So at any time, you can create a new lead for an existing customer, okay. But also in your quotes, when you go into the quote page, again, in the same way, you have the different filters across the top. So every quote that you have done will be in the All tabs page. Any quotes that you've sent out but haven't received a response from, we call Open. And then if you have converted that quote to either a job or an invoice, we call that Won. Okay? So, and then any quote, obviously, that you've lost moves into the Lost section. Now, there's a couple of ways that it can become lost. It can either expire, so the quote has been given a 30-day period, so it will automatically move into lost, but it'll have the field of tag of expired, or you'll manually change the setting to lost if they've just said no. Okay, so that you actually manage the quote process within the quotes section. Yeah. The idea of the lead in the pipeline, I guess, is to get them from being a lead to the quote stage. Yeah.
We have a question from the webinar. Is the country and or regional phone code automatically on the phone number?
I believe it is. Again, if they're having challenges with that, then let us know. I suspect if there is a challenge, it's to do with the assigning to that country in the first place. But yes.
Okay. We have a question over here.
Is a new lead, when you say new lead, is that like making a new contact?
Yeah, you replace the word lead. I know you guys call it lead, I think, but traditionally in normal sales process, it's an opportunity to win business. And that the opportunity increases as they move through the sales pipeline to the point where they then get quoted and then closed. So a lead for you would be you're mowing someone's lawn and the person next to you says, hey, can you come around and see me next Tuesday? You're not at quote stage yet, but they've expressed an interest. It's an opportunity to win business. So that's how we kind of define it. And in a more complicated sales process, a particular customer so a potential franchisee has shown some interest, but they're a long way from being a franchisee. So there's a number of steps that you'll take them through the process to eventually convert them into a franchisee.
So if I was doing a job and Barry wanted people done,
yep.
Next door,
yep.
So I add now regular client, do I add a lead or a client contact with them?
Is he an existing client?
No.
Okay, if he's not an existing client, I would set him up as a lead so that he's in the system to be managed. If you create a lead, it will automatically create a contact as well, okay? But if you're there and Barry says, hey, I'm interested, can you give me a quote, then don't worry about the lead stage, you just go straight into the quote and set them up that way.
Okay, we had another question from the floor over here.
Yeah, so is there a section unserviced lead? So at the moment, if there's an unserviced lead comes through, but we're to see if we can break that lead. Going to be a section on Formitize that captures those unserviced leads, and we're going to see if there are things we can capture. If we click on that unserviced lead, then it allocates to us.
Will there be a section in Formitize for unserviced leads? And will there be a process to get that allocated to you in Formitize?
Nothing's been discussed about unserviced leads so far.
Certainly a question on notice. We'll take that one on notice.
So they're leads that are just generally available, haven't been assigned to anybody yet.
So clients around the call center and there's no one available to service that lead.
Okay.
And then you go out to everyone that's an unserviced lead.
Okay.
And it's up to us within the call center to try and capture that if we're available to.
Okay. So it's kind of like our taxi queue idea, but for the lead stage.
So obviously, a service to a customer would be the quicker we can get that service. So if it comes up to everyone on the Formitize that's unserviced and it's older.
Yep.
We can click on that and go through the services.
Okay. Good idea.
Okay. That's a development opportunity. We'll take that on board. Another question from the webinar. On my iPad, I do not get the status on the right-hand side of the lead. Is this an iPad issue, or is there something wrong with my program?
If there are no coloured tabs on the right-hand side, it's an old version of the app. So update the app, please.
Update the app. Any more questions from the floor on leads? Yes, please.
Give us a bench, you guys do a lot of quotes and stuff, which might time lapse. Can you then bring them back in again?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so any expired quote, just swipe from the right and hit the green open quote button, and that will reopen. I think when you do that, it sets a day period for how long you enter the new expiry date.
Okay. Other questions? Any more questions? No more questions from the webinar, no more questions from the floor. Okay, there were no questions on notice for leads, so we will move on to quotation management, please.
Okay, so we've pretty much covered quotation management already as an extension of leads, but that's exactly the page that we're looking at. We've done our quote. We want to stay on top of the quotes that we've done. So this tab is very useful. The all is kind of just probably not that useful because it's just throwing everything into the one pot. But obviously you can search all quotes from there. The open one is the powerful one, I guess. It's the sort of thing that you can sit down and have your lunch, go through your open quotes, and very simply swipe from left to right, email or SMS or call them if you've got the call option, to follow those quotes up. Similarly, if you have built in the quote reminders in the settings, then you know that those quotes will be automatically followed up as well. But as we all know, a phone call is the best option, and the quotes are valuable. So that's a very effective way to do it. In the reporting tab, we are working on some more statistical graphs and charts and reporting for you so that you can start really digging into the conversions of your leads and your quotes. Obviously, we've got all the data there. We know what you've won and what you've lost and what's currently open from all quotes. So we're adding some nice visual reporting on that for you as well. Lost. As I said, there's a number of reasons a quote can be lost. It will either expire when it passes its expiry date, which is a setting again. In the settings, you determine how long that quote can be valid for, and then you can manually assign it to lost if the customer calls back and says they're not going to go with you. So that's quote management. If we jump across to the portal to have a look at the same thing, make sure everybody at home can see this. Okay, so I'm going to go to accounts in the CRM. And within the accounts tab are invoices, payments, credit notes, and quotes. If I click on quotes, I can see all of my quotes. In the attached to column, I can see what's been converted already. You can see where they've come from. What they've been attached to is where they've come from and where they've gone. So there's also the jobs, invoices, and details will be attached to it if there are. I can filter by date range. I can filter by source, by status. So if I just want to look at my open quotes, I have to drop down here. And you can also filter your quotes on all of the available fields from the quote as well. So okay. If you want to look at an individual client, then again, you can go into the contacts tab at the top. Select the contact. Click on that. Down in the activity tab, so basically when you look in the contact page, there's three modules. There's the contacts on the left-hand side, there's the communications on the right-hand side, just making sure that people at home are keeping up with this here. Okay. Contacts tab on the left, communication tab at the right, and down underneath is the activity tab. And if you look across the activities section, you've got all of the jobs that are being done for this client, and you can filter those based on their different statuses. But what we're looking at right now is quotes. So you can go into the quotes section and look at all of the quotes that have been raised for this customer, what their current status is. You can go in and view the PDF. You can edit it from here, and the colored tabs show what's happened to the quote so far. Okay, so that's the CRM or the portal view of quotes in the CRM. And in the same way, you can filter by status, date range, or search on individual criteria. So that's quote management on both the portal side and in the CRM. If you want to do more detailed reporting, you can go into the reports section. You probably don't need to do that much on quotes, but it is a tab within quotes, and in there you can filter on absolutely everything. All of the line items and information available in a quote is available to create filtered reports, which you can then download the CSV file of. Okay, I think that covers quotes. It's probably a bit shorter than it was meant to be because we pretty much covered it already as part of the leads.
Any questions on quotes from the floor? Yes.
What about when you send things in email?
Yeah.
Is that the way you send email or can you like incorporate into that so you can look at readers and see what you send?
Let's have a look at that because that's a good question.
So can we just repeat that question? So when you send yourself emails?
When you send a customer emails? Yeah. Do you have a record of that email?
A record of the email.
On the attendance email.
Okay. Do you have a record of the emails sent to the customer?
Okay, just making sure you got, okay, got visible at home. All right, so let's have a look at sending a quote. If I go into my open quotes, click on it, it shows all of the quote detail. This is something I really should have covered, so I'm glad you asked. All of the standard information that you'd expect is there. Go into one that's been... At the bottom of the quote, you can also see the history. Now, this is a new feature that's been added, so it's following the history of this quote all the way through. This one's now being converted to an invoice, but you can see the original source of the all the way from the lead to where it is at the moment. Across the bottom, you can view a PDF of the quote. So I'll just touch on that red button and it'll show a PDF. It's now being converted to invoice, but that's the detail. You can edit it by hitting on the green edit button. That brings all those options in. When I'm looking at the line items here, you hit add item to add a new line item. Touch on the item and it'll bring in your line item invoices. So this is pretty bad demonstration data, but you touch on the element that's right, and that populates that line item. And then just hit save to save it. Email. Creates the email. If you've got the customer's email address already in there, it'll auto-populate that. It brings in the invoice details or the quote details, payment terms, etc. You can hit the plus button and it'll automatically send you a copy of that quote at exactly the same time, and then hit send. And it will then tag that as a sent invoice, quote rather. We're talking about quotes now. So that's the process. Yep.
Okay. We have a question from the webinar. If you add a lead to Formitize, do we get that as a lead? Oh, sorry, so bring that in. If you add a lead to Formitize, do we get change as a lead, and is it added to the GIMS database? Right, that's from Wayne. So, is it added to the GIMS database if it comes through Formitize?
Is that charge as a lead, probably?
Yeah, charge. Yeah.
Okay. So I can't really answer the first one in terms of when you get charged. That's a GIMS thing. But if you're receiving the lead and you're paying for it, that's why you'd be getting it, I'm guessing.
I think what the question would be is, does it automatically populate FFS?
Right. Not if you've added it manually. If you're adding the lead into the system, that case, are they charged for that? No. So you can add your own lead into Formitize, it doesn't go back to FMS, and you're not being charged for it. That's your lead. If the lead is coming from FMS, obviously they've got it already. Yep, that makes sense.
Next question from the webinar. When will pickups, as opposed to leads, start coming through Formitize once they're entered into FMS, or can we have them go the other way and have Formitize populate FMS?
Same question, I think, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I think it's the same question. At the moment, Formitize doesn't populate FMS, and currently under discussion, but not in the pipeline at the moment, is my understanding. Correct, Mike?
Yeah.
Yep.
So just to clarify there, the suggestion would be then to enter pickups in FMS or in GIMS online, and that would then be picked up in Formitize.
That's correct. FMS feeds Formitize and GIMS online, but Formitize doesn't feed FMS or GIMS online. That's correct. So you'd feed it into FMS. That would then feed forwards.
So the discussions have already started on that. It obviously makes sense for everybody with the option to include it back to FMS or not.
When quoting, can you take a photo of the item to be quoted?
The current quotation doesn't include the photo option. The new version will. So I can't remember if it's November, December. We'll cover that when we get to the feature releases. But the ability to take a photo, signature, or a drawing will be added to both quotes and invoices.
When emailing a quote or invoice, will it update Xero's notes history for the client accordingly?
Strangely, Xero doesn't have a quote import facility, so the quote won't go into Xero, but any invoice activity will. So if you update or create an invoice with Formitize, it will automatically push and create in Xero.
Just an additional comment or correction coming through for the previous pickups question. Currently, pickups don't come through to Formitize, only leads do. Okay. Okay. So thank you to Brian for that clarification. I think we have a few questions or notice on the PowerPoint. Any other questions from the floor? One there while we go to the PowerPoint.
With the, just a question on the business of the history of the court and so on. Does the cost when it's been paid, or the cost that's been invoiced, or does it the cost that's been paid?
It does. Yes, it does.
Does the history record if it's been paid?
Yeah. It tracks it all the way through. So the history shows every single stage from it being created as a lead through to payment.
Is that recording, is that done through the accounting software and then comes back in, or is that done through the
Either. So is invoicing next?
Invoicing is next. The question is it done through the accounting software, or is it done through Formitize?
Okay, so when we get to the invoicing section, I'll show you how to take payment of the invoice through the app. Equally, if you're using Xero, for example, and the reconciliation is paid as an invoice, it will update Formitize to show that it's been paid. Yep.
Yes, sir. Question from the floor.
The question as well brought up, if a payment has been made through Xero, will it come through Formitize to cancel the reminders about the client?
No, but it will very soon. It's part of that same process we talked about earlier of halting reminders. Sorry, that's not correct. If it has been paid, the chasing reminders stop.
Okay. The big thing about Jim's is harassment of clients. So can you harass a client too much by these reminders? If they've already paid it, they don't want to get around.
Yeah.
So your question is, if it's already been paid by Xero, do the chasing reminders get cancelled? The answer is?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. Any more questions from the floor? Let's go to the questions on notice on the PowerPoint, please, Matt. If you go down 3 slides. And share that with the folks at home. Okay, first question, I think we've answered this. Can I modify the quote once I've completed it?
You can, yes. Just go into it and hit edit, and you can change anything you want to.
Can I delete a quote?
Yes, you can.
Can I print a quote?
The only way you can print the quote at the moment is in PDF view. So either in the portal in particular, get it to view PDF, and from the PDF you can print.
Okay, so via PDF. We'll go to the next slide, please, Matt. So more questions on notice. What happens if I do a manual quote? Do I need to enter it into Formitize?
You don't have to. Obviously, if you want all of your records to be up to date and everything included, then it's ideal. But that's really a personal decision. You can keep your quotes separate from Formitize if you want to, or if you want to have that sort of all-round experience and have everything in one place, then me and probably your accountants would encourage you to have everything in the one place.
Next question, can I do a quote with just the total on it?
Yes, so this is an interesting one, and we do get a number of different requirements around this. So I guess the example is that you might have a quote prepared which has got 5 internal line items for different parts or components or services, and you don't want the client to be able to see all of those different modules, but rather just a total. At the moment, we don't do that. The only way to do that is to override and put in your own free text for that line item with a total. So it is something that we're aware of that would help improve the system for those that need it. But the short answer is you just create a custom quote with free text in. But we will be looking at it.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I think that last question is the same. Can I modify the quote once I've completed it? That's the same as the previous one. Don't know if there are any more. No. We have a question from the webinar, specifically related to pickups that don't come through to Formitize, only leads do. Can you please confirm the timing for this development? It's something we need to provide proper functionality. I think from our point of view, Matt mentioned that still in discussion. It's something we'll have to take on board, put into a development pipeline.
Yeah, I'm not aware of how FMS treats a pickup differently to a lead. If there's a way that it can be arranged so that it's treated in a similar way, then it's not a big job. But without knowing the detail, I can't really comment any further on that.
Okay. That's one for the development pipeline. Any more questions on quotation management from the floor? No? Then I'll come back to a question on flows. Yeah, one you asked before.
Can you put the price of the job with the details of client, the recurring client, it's like $60? How do you put the price into the client details?
So the question is for recurring clients, how do you put the same price into the client details?
So the way that we deal with that is you have the client, and then you set up a recurring job for that client, and the recurring job has the line item invoice detail in it set at $60. So client first, create a job that is recurring for that client, and one of the line items in that, we're going to cover jobs in more detail, so you'll see this more. But when you create the job for that client, there's one of the tabs is the recurring invoice part. And so every time that job recurs, the invoice will automatically be in there for $60. Yeah?
Okay. I think we're out of questions for quotation management. Any more for any more? Going once? Oh, we have one from the webinar. Quotes need modifying occasionally with additions and removal of lines. Can you edit an existing quote?
You can, yes. Just go into the quote, and at the bottom is a green edit button. That opens up all of the fields available to edit, including the ability to add new line items. So you just hit new item or touch on the existing items and change the details.
Can you swap across to the app and show us this next?
All right, so here I've gone into quote, and then at the bottom of the page this is the quote as it is. At the bottom of the page, I can either click to view the PDF, email it, or edit it. If I click on, and underneath that is the ability to convert the quote to an invoice or convert the quote to a job. So there's a number of different options at the bottom, including adding note as well, all right? So 6 options at the bottom. View PDF, send email, which will have the PDF attached, edit the quote, and that's the question that's being asked, if I remember. So I touch on edit. That opens up all of the fields so that I can make whatever changes that I want to, add additional comments, and then equally I can either edit the existing line item and change the amount to 65 instead of 55, or I can add another line item for whatever it might be into the quote. Hit save at the bottom, and that quote will now be updated. I didn't add it. That'll let me save and ready to convert to whatever. Okay, so that's editing a quote using the options at the bottom.
Okay. Any more from the webinar? No?
Just while we're looking at quotes in exactly the same way, all the way through the app, exactly the same functionality. So when you're looking at your quotes, swipe left to right to communicate, swipe right to left to convert. Here you can see the option to convert to invoice, convert to job, or tag it as a lost quote. That same functionality runs right through the whole app. Left to right to communicate, right to left to action.
Question from the webinar. Can you please explain the difference between converting to a job and converting to an invoice?
One of the problems with being flexible is that there are a number of different routes to take or possible options to take. So converting a quote to an invoice is exactly that. You've done the quote's been accepted, you've done the job, you convert it to an invoice. The alternate to that is you've created the quote, the customer has accepted the quote, and so now you want to schedule the job. So by converting a quote to a job, it will create the job and it will attach the quote ready for conversion to an invoice automatically. Okay, so it'll basically, it enables you to not have to follow a certain path. And this is what we touched on earlier. You can either just go from lead straight to invoice and get paid, or you can go from lead to quote, quote to job, job to invoice. It really depends on how you want to operate your business. And it's one of the reasons why we've put these colored tags on there. So it's very easy for you to see exactly the status of and what's been done with each different type of lead and quote and invoice in terms of seeing its current status and what you've done with it. But that's the difference. Converting a quote to a lead is a financial thing. Here's the quote, the customer accepts it, now I'm converting it into an invoice for payment. Converting a quote to a lead is taking the details of the quote, creating a job that is you're going to go and do, and part of that job, the invoice will be attached, pulling the information from the quote to then deliver the job, send the invoice. The flexibility is there as well, is because some people want to invoice before they do the job. So either way, it's got to be available, and some people only invoice after they've done the job, and so that's why the flexibility is being built in.
Next question from the webinar. When we merge Xero with Formitize, will it double up on the contacts?
It's a good question. The answer is, if the contacts are exactly the same, it won't. If there are variations, then it could. What we certainly encourage you to do is the Xero integration first. So if you're already with Xero, do that first, and then all of that information will be in there, and then you're just adding new contacts in either. We'll just update one or the other.
Okay. One more question from the webinar. In quotes and invoices, where is the best place to have the terms of trade loaded so they go out with each quote and invoice? Where do you put the terms of trade so that it goes out with each quote and invoice?
Okay, so the quick answer to that is, we'll stay in the app for a minute just so you can see the settings. When you go into the settings section, there are tabs for invoice, quote, and purchase. So in the quote section of the settings, you can add a general title, your terms and conditions, your quote summary. This is traditionally where that information will go. As I touched on earlier, we are in either the next release or the one after, enabling you to add attachments, so physical PDF attachments to the quote and invoice as well. So if you've got, multi-page
having the technology reenacted. Good. Keep going.
Okay, so I'm converting a job to a recurring job. I'll go through this really quickly because we're going to cover jobs in more detail this afternoon, but you click on the recurring job, put the frequency in, so it's every 2 weeks. When's it going to end? It's either on a job count, on a specified date, or I don't want it to end, it's an ongoing job. Select whichever one you want from there. And then underneath, you'll see that it gives you just a nice summary to make sure that you've got it right. So it's going to create a job every second week, starting from the 9th of November. Here's the next 3 jobs, and the very next job will be on the 23rd of November. So it's just a nice little recurring summary to make sure that you've got it right in terms of setting it up. And once you save that, the recurring jobs will process from then on with all of that detail set. Okay, so that's converting a quote to a new job and assigning it straight into the schedule.
Okay, another question from the webinar. With quotes, could I do a quote from a verbal quote, not send it, but have it attached to a job created so I can convert it to an invoice? Basically, so I know what I said I would charge. So you have a verbal quote, you want to retain that so that you know what you said you will charge.
Yeah, personally, I would just create a quote within Formitize, just as if everything you said, just create the quote. Just don't email it. If you don't want them to see it, it's all been agreed. The quote's in there then, and then just convert it to a job. So you've shown that it's been won and converted, but you've got all the detail in there. And by creating the quote in the first place, you'll also create the customer contact. So it's all done at once.
So I think everyone's getting the picture that we're recommending that you put everything in there, into Formitize. I think your accountant would probably like that as well.
Bookkeeping.
Just from the floor.
Just on that bookkeeping point, we get hugely positive feedback from the gyms, from franchisees using gyms bookkeepers. So I'm not here to sell gyms bookkeeping, but we've had nothing but praise and very positive feedback from anybody that's using a gyms bookkeeper. Thought I'd flag it when it comes up.
Okay, we've got no more questions from the webinar. Any more questions from the floor? Going once? Going twice? Okay, I think we're going to close the morning session rather early. For those on the webinar, we'll be back again promptly at 1:30. If you have any questions about anything from this morning's session, please feel free to email them through if you're on the webinar. If you're here on site, please grab either Phil or Matt at lunch and feel free to pick their brains. If you have development suggestions, please also email them through to either myself, Mark, or to Matt or Phil. Emails I'll post up later, but capture that as we're going through. We'll be back here starting promptly at 1:30. Thank you very much. For those of you on site and ready to eat, we'll be eating at 12:30 down at the Foothills Conference Centre in the restaurant. Thank you. Any more questions?
There was,
All good?
Yeah, we can't.
As a group across gyms, I don't like those problem gyms, what standard but one less step for the I think about installation.
I think it's a great idea. Because the old Jimbo app had standards.
All good, folks? All good?
So, that's all right. Good idea. Just grab it and put it in there by default. Yeah. If they want to override it with something specific later, they can, but at least default's in there.
Opportunities there.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's a really good idea. Take that.
At the moment, I'm using Jim's job.
Yep.
I think I had a conversation with you.
Yeah, your face is familiar. So I talked to you the first day?
Yeah. In Jim's job, there's a suppliers function, which in there you do your purchases. Yep. Which you can go to a supplier, you got your purchases, which is also linked into the tax and all that sort of stuff. Is there something that catches that information?
Yeah, so we call it expenses, but it's the same thing.
Yep. Does it capture the information of the suppliers though?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, if it's an existing supplier, so when you set it up in the portal,
yep.
Accounts. Purchases.
Yep.
This is where it's all sitting.
Yep.
In terms of setting them up. If it's something that you purchase, then this is where you add what it is you want to go into, so you're going to see it, tax rate if it's relevant, and then any detail about it. You've also got, so you can either set it up as a purchase item, and so when you go into purchases then, and you touch on the line item, only your purchases will be here to select. Some people will buy stuff that they then resell. So you might buy multiple price and sell it at X price. So you can set it up as something that you want to sell and deal with both of them at once. Okay. So then it'll appear as a purchase line item in your suppliers and a sales item in your invoice.
Okay.
It's all coming from the same place.
Yeah, no worries. So also in that section too, obviously for us, purchase item would be on the lawnmower. With Jim's job, once you put asset, it then gives you the option to put a serial number and date of purchase, all that in there. Then we could obviously, if something gets sold, we can also push a button that says asset. That gives you a report of all your assets. So that's been obviously, especially if our trailer gets stolen, we can push a button asset, and it'll give you a list of your assets and serial numbers that captures that information. So maybe it's like in general, what I'm saying is a normal purchase is normal. As soon as you click assets on that purchase, it then brings up another tab of serial numbers and all that, which has been really handy for capturing that information, because the first thing police and insurance ask for is the serial numbers and all that. So it just sort of captures it all in one.
Great idea. You could, I think it's a really good idea. You can go into resources, and this is where a lot of guys do it. Everything that has a document associated with it or any detail around it, you can set up in here. It also reflects back in the app. So upload the purchase documents, the agreement, the leases, or your licenses, or registrations, whatever. And it's all stored in there and also then available to you in the app as well. That's a good idea. You can certainly, if you buy something, you can certainly tag it as an asset in here, but it doesn't reflect any of that. But you could record it all in there if you want.
It's only later on, 12 months down the track, it says you've had a problem with your lawnmower, and you can look it up straight away, and it says, okay, you purchased on this.
It's really good.
And also, your warranty.
They probably use it for depreciation stuff.
So then also, that gives you the other option too. When you click asset, it says how much you want to depreciate, and gives you 100% or whatever. Gives you that option in that field.
Very good.
So accountants just love it. That's all.
Absolutely. All right, I'll look at that.
No worries.
Good idea.
A couple of clients that are real estate agents, body corporates, or different addresses. How do we do that? That's I was trying to use for a couple of months ago. I had no idea how to do that. Will we go through that later on?
I'll show you now. I'm not sure we're going to cover it, but we call those locations, right? So you have your billing address, which is the estate agent. And under the estate agent, you can have as many locations as you want. And when you then send an invoice to the estate agent, have the billing details, beneath that it's got location, but telling them what property it relates to.
And you'll pull out on the exact same invoice, so just say you're in four house the same day, create an invoice. So I use mine at the moment, so I just have and then I have an even add description. Street, the 8 Gordon Street, all line invoice.
Are you doing those as line items in the invoice?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. So that's the only way you could do it with us as well. They basically be line items. So here's the invoice to the estate agent, and the line items are the different properties that you've actually addressed. Yeah. So it's using it slightly differently. I can see why you do it. The normal process with us is each property that you've visited would have a separate invoice.
So when it says items code, you know, it
That's right, we're just doing the items then, so I'll show you that again. Yep.
You got different ones that are $6, $50.
Okay, yep.
And a regular, will that always come up with the code if you got $60?
Yep. So when you set up a recurring job, we will cover jobs later, but I'll show you now anyway. So when you set up your recurring jobs, let's say you're doing a job in here, right? The recurring job, so you'll have, what do you call it? Regular?
Regular, yeah.
Line item?
Yep.
So I'm setting up a job type now, like a template, for my regular mowing.
Because they're all different prices, obviously.
Yep. This is setting up the default, right, for all regular mows. When you go to do it for an individual customer, I'll show you different in the app. I'll show you in the app as well. So you select your customer. That brings in all of the customer details. Okay. And then in the invoice section, you've got these choices. You can either add a quote to it. If I'm going to do the job, but it's just a quotation, so I'm adding a quote. I can add an invoice that I'm going to customize and set up right now. Or I can go on invoice it all. I'll worry about the invoice once I've done the job. Or here's the invoices that have already been raised for this client. It's already been set up. I'm now going to do the job for the invoice that I've already created. Right, you with me? I'll show you in the app as well. There's too many options. What you will do is create the job